It's time for a houseplant massacre. Well, hello everyone, welcome to another video. It is me, Desiree, and yes, it's time to massacre some plants. I have a few plants that look like this, just hanging their little dried up plant bones all over the place, and I need to cut these off. So this is a red vein maranta that has seen better days. I mean, look at it. Look at this poor baby. So I don't really know what happened here because I was staying on top of it like I do all of my marantas. You know I'm a perfect plant parent. Do not fight me on that, I'm perfect. But this poor baby never really stood a chance because I never actually wanted it. I saw it at the grocery store and it was the biggest maranta I had ever seen, at least the biggest red vein maranta I'd ever seen. I love getting a giant full plant like this at the grocery store for a good price. This was $12.99. It looked way better when I got it. I'm pretty sure I showed it in a haul as well. But when I was walking to the car from the store holding this plant, I felt this feeling come over me of like, why did I buy that? Why did I buy this? I instantly regretted it. And that's the energy that I put into this plant all the time of just, I never really wanted you. Did you know that? And I feel like the plant knew that, and he was just like, Mom never really wanted me. And then it never thrived. It just kind of would die and die and die. Made some mistakes with this plant, put a lot of bad energy into it because I never really wanted it. But it's time to try to save it. Obviously, most of it is garbage, but there are a few good looking pieces here. And I was inspired to do this because I repotted a couple of marantas in a previous video, and I love the way they look. I love the way they look as small plants. And I honestly was just gonna throw this whole thing away, but I saw this little bit here that looks good, and I thought, you know what? If I can save that, why not try it and have a small plant that I will love, rather than having this big thing just kind of hanging out, being dead in the corner of the living room, you know? So I'm gonna try to save a little bit of this plant, and I'm gonna show you where you can tell where the roots are gonna grow out of your maranta. A lot of other plants have a very obvious node. There's usually a little tiny root popping out of it, and that's where you're gonna cut, or cut right underneath that. But marantas are a little different. So let me cut one of the pieces here. So this is a piece here that I am gonna save. And I was describing this as like an elbow in another video, like right where there's like this weird bend. That's where the node is gonna be, and that's where roots might pop out. So it's right here. You can see this little bend here, but then there's also one right here. It's also kind of where the leaf starts. I know it's kind of a weird description, but I'm sure you could see from there, right? Like this little bump right here, and then there's like a little bump right here. That's where roots are gonna grow out. So I'm hoping they're gonna grow from here, but I am just gonna put this in water. I just washed these spaghetti jars out. I didn't even take the labels off or anything. I'm just gonna put this one here, and hopefully that's gonna grow some roots. And then I'm gonna do the same with this little piece here. I'm gonna try to cut it as far down as possible so it might have a couple of chances for root growth. So again, like there's a little bump right here, and then right here where this new little branch of leaves is growing, that's another little bump where roots are gonna grow. So if I can give it 2 chances to grow roots, why not? And there isn't much left on this plant that looks really good. I mean, this looks okay, but it's very, very wilted. I don't think it's gonna bounce back, but you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. Why not? So there's that little bump right there, the little elbow bend. I'm gonna put that one in there, although I think it's just gonna rot. Do I even bother? Why not? I already cut it. So I think that's all I'm gonna save from this poor thing. Yeah, it's seen better days, but it was all my fault. The plant did nothing wrong. It was all me. So let's say goodbye to this little baby and his vines made of dried up plant bones. Goodbye, red vein maranta. You were not long for this world. And I do have one more plant for the Great Plant Massacre. This is a green Syngonium. I almost called it a maranta. I bought this from Steve's Leaves a while back, and this was a reverted something, mojito maybe, I don't know. It had some irrigation on one of the leaves, but that leaf has since died, and it just keeps growing long vines with the leaf right at the top, and it looks ridiculous. I always thought this plant looked really cool like this, kind of like whimsical and fun and wild, but now I just think it looks ridiculous. So we're gonna chop this baby up today too. I did bring in a taller spaghetti jar. I also didn't take the label off, but I kind of like the way this label looks on this one. And this one has very obvious nodes. So let's chop right down there. Like this one has very, very obvious nodes because there's little tiny roots popping out of it. And most of the time the plant does have an obvious node. Sometimes like a Maranta, you know, it's not so obvious. But these ones have very obvious nodes. Little tiny roots are popping out of the stem. That's where roots are going to grow out once you put this in water. So I'm going to cut the rest of this excess stem off. And anything that's right here, that's what's going to go into water. That's what's going to grow some roots, hopefully. So I'm just going to continue cutting this little baby down. Let's cut this piece off. Ooh. I'm so excited to do this, to be honest, because this plant just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So I'm going to cut the excess stem off, and again here you can see all these little roots popping out of the stem, and we're going to put that in water. All right, next one. I mean, look at this vine. Look at this vine with one leaf at the top. Like, okay, you've had your run, Syngonium. You've had your wild run. And this one actually grew a root out and started growing into the ground, into the pot. So sometimes the roots will just grow from the stem like that. And sometimes they'll just kind of repot themselves back into the soil. So again, that's a really good one. Look at all of those chances for root growth. I mean, the more chances you can get root growth, the better. Like on the Marantas, most of them had at least 2 chances. This one has like 10. So hopefully some of them actually get roots. Okay, the next piece, I did lower the blinds because it's getting super bright, but now it's like that lighting that makes me look like a witch. Look at this piece. Look at this long stem with those leaves at the top. Like, come on, Syngonium. This one, I mean, I'm gonna cut all of this excess off here. If this one grows, I think I'm just gonna keep the 3 leaves on here and not cut each one off. So let's do, I'll just cut this little piece off here. And there's a ton of opportunity here for root growth, so we're gonna put that in there. I bet this is gonna be one of those plants that I end up keeping in the water. So I chopped up a Rhaphidophora tetrasperma that I have growing in water now, and I love it in there. It's thriving and thriving and thriving in the water like it never did in soil. And I love it so much, I never plan to repot it. So I have a feeling if this works out that I'll end up keeping it in water too. This one looks good. I think I'll keep these 2 leaves together too, because this one right here, well, I guess if I cut it right there, I could put the stem. Let's see if I can cut it like without chopping that leaf off. So I separated the leaves. This one here just has 1 node, actually 2. It has 2 little nodes right there, so 2 opportunities for growth. And then this one has a whole bunch, so hopefully this one does take off. I'm gonna cut off those little ones on the bottom. Okay, so here's what we're left with, our little pot. But this looks a lot better, even just sitting in the water here. I hope this does take off, because I feel like I'm going to end up keeping it in the water if it does. And then our little red vein Maranta. I really like this as a small plant. I really truly did regret buying that big one because I never truly wanted it. I regretted it so quickly that I always just never wanted the plant, and the plant knew that, I think. So I think this is going to look really good if this one roots well. I think I'm gonna like it a lot better. But that's it. That is episode 1 of Houseplant Massacre. Yes, I have more plants that I'm gonna be chopping up in the same fashion. So stay tuned for that. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe so you don't miss my next one, and I will see you later in another video. Goodbye.